Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the thing that we're doing, which is almost always swords now. It has been quite a while since I made a video on Shinai. The last one was called Shinai Surgery, and I really enjoyed making that video because it has to do with swords, and I was learning more about Shinai and taking them apart and trying to put them back together and like figure out how they work a little bit better. And it's been a little while since then, and I kind of wanted to do another one because I literally just finished fixing up this sword. I don't know what these swords are in relation to the last ones you saw. I think they're all completely new swords. It's been a little while, so I've gone through a couple of swords, and what had gone wrong with this one is my Nakayui had broken. That is a word I only learned a couple days ago, because despite how long I've been using these now, which is almost 2 years, I still don't know the names of all parts of these magical things yet. However, what had happened, because I've been doing quite a hectic amount of Kendo lately, at least compared to before, my Nakayui had snapped over there, and so I had to take it off and replace it with a spare Nakayui that I had lying around, which luckily I did have. The thing about that is, though, the Shinai design is quite like it's all kind of integral to the other bits, so to take that off, you kind of need to undo the whole swords string situation and re-thread it through and then like retie it. So that was quite a fun journey. I kind of wish I recorded it, but it's kind of less for content and more that I actually need a sword for training tomorrow, so I had to fix that one today, and that one is now done. However, I did have two other swords that have problems, so I thought I'll bring all of them, and if I have enough time, maybe I'll do a recording. So that's why we're here now. So the other two that I have here with me, the first one, good lord, it's a little bit worse than I thought. I've been using this one as my main sword for a few weeks now, and you won't be able to see it, but this is where uh, this is the site of the problem, really, because that is kind of the effect of where you hit people with, which is called this, which I could have told you even this morning, but it escapes my brain at the moment. But it's essentially the effective striking range of the sword. So because I'm striking so fervently, let's call it, there's a lot of splitting happening with this sword, which you might remember from my previous video. It's a common problem I have with just a little bit too much power and not enough subtlety and technique yet, but we're getting there. And this is actually a lot worse than, can we see that at all? This is a lot worse, oh god, you can, than I thought it was. The splitting is coming, ooh yeah, so much further down than I imagined, that's a bad sign. That means I was hitting a few things over here instead of within that range over there. Probably because I've been doing a lot of hikiwaza lately, so I've been hitting and going backwards. But if you don't step properly, then you hit a little bit short. So that's the problem with this sword today. So I think I just want to see if I can take it apart and swap the staves around, so that that one is going to be at the back and the other ones on the sides should be fine, because the straightness of the blade, it's not perfect, but it's just fine for what it needs to do. Maybe we'll just rotate all of them around one. Unfortunately, you can't just turn all of the fittings around the staves. That would be great, but it would not be great for the actual stability of the sword. So let's have a look here. First of all, the thing to notice is that is way too loose. That string tension is not nearly enough. The one that I have here I think is actually decent from the one that I just redid. See, that is much better. There's a nice strength to that string, which is what you want. Why? I'm not entirely sure, but I do know it's something that you want. I think it's mostly for the structural integrity of holding the sword together. So, let's get into it. We are going to just start taking the sword apart, and then let's see what we can do. I'm feeling a lot more confident about my understanding of Shinai. It's been a while since the last video, and I haven't stopped training except for maybe 2 weeks in between all that time where I didn't do any training, just because dojos officially close around Christmas time usually. Oh, I didn't do that correctly. Oh, no, I did do that correctly. That's fine. I'm learning new ways and intricacies of doing this, so I think this sword was done quite nicely now, because I paid very close attention to how it was done since it's a new sword, and how all of the fittings go together. And I'm not going to call it a perfect job, mostly because I'm a perfectionist, but it's really good. It's much better than I was about a year ago. Okay, so if we drop that through here, we should be able to take all of that apart. Wonderful. Okay, before I would feel very nervous about taking it all apart and not being able to put it back together, but I literally just did it a few minutes ago, so I think we'll be okay. Worst case scenario though, I will just look it up and then and then edit it out, because that's the beauty of this space. Okay, so we have now undone the tsuru. I really want to learn what this thing is called, so I had to replace this on the other sword as well just now, which I also just noticed this sword doesn't have. But I had to replace this on the other sword, because you can't really get to all of these other bits like the Nakayui and take it off and put the new one on without removing whatever this thing is called. So I had to take that off, and I thought while I was doing it I'd replace it with a nicer one. And it's actually kind of bothering me that it's sitting skew. Just a little bit. It bothers me a little bit. I'll check tomorrow when I go to Keiko if that's actually important, if it does anything, if that's slightly skew or not. But it'll probably be fine as long as you can hit person with stick. That's broadly what you need for this martial art. Okay, so I don't know if you can see. I really should have taken the camera into better consideration. I never do. Let's take that off, whose name also escapes me for now, but we're getting there. We'll learn them one by one, even if it takes a little while to get through them all. Let's not damage this Nakayui now. Trying to get over those staves, that would not be ideal. Unfortunately, we're going to have to take... Ooh, okay, that coming off was fine. It's going to be the going on that's going to be the bigger problem, really. But let's take it off and have a part. It has been a while since I've done this myself. This is really not the best studio for this. This one I do know. I don't know why it's covered in... Is that maybe glue? Who knows? This is called a saki gomu. So saki would just refer to the tip of the sword, like the end bit of the sword. That whole area would be called the ken saki. And then this would be the saki gomu. Gomu, for anyone who watches One Piece, is pretty easily known as rubber. So that, or gum, I suppose in that case, but that's just the little rubber bit that sits at the end of the sword to space it out, which is quite nifty. Okay, so now that that's out, that squishable distance. You know what, microphone? Can you move out my way a bit, please? You're cramping my style here. If you remove the sakigomu, then that can actually close and move, which means the stave distance should change just a little bit, and maybe, just maybe, we can squeeze our Nakayui off, hopefully without doing any damage to it, because that would not be great to have to replace two Nakayui in one day, especially because I don't think I've got any more spares lying around. Maybe I've got one in the forge, possibly. I'd rather not bet on it though. Let's try keep it all together now. Come on, squeeze. It's not feeling it, if I'm honest. It's taking a little bit of elbow grease to gently remove this. And it's not the most gentle operation, I'll be honest with you. Ah, there we go. Okay. Whew. Nice. Okay, so now we are back to sticks. These are down to the base elements. That would be the tsuru, which is the string. Anything else I know? That one I forget. I will brush up on these, so next time I'm slightly more knowledgeable than I am today. Right, okay, so here are the staves all together. We are probably just going to make this real easy for ourselves, turn the whole sword upside down, and then put the things back together, just so that the damaged pieces will be at the back where we're not hitting anyone with them. But let's have a look. So we have this over here where the kanji is written, if you can see that literally at all, that is too bright. There we go. So you can see there's kanji written on this stave. That would usually indicate that that is the top stave, so the back of the sword. And then opposite to that one would be the striking side of the sword, the bottom side of the sword, which is the one we want to replace. The other two are probably okay, just staying where they are. But there is a bit of a gentle bend in the sword, if I'm honest. But I've been using it for like a month or two, maybe a little bit longer, and it's been fine. So we're just gonna accept that the way it is. Maybe, hey, it'll even be fixed a little bit by swapping these other two staves around. Okay, that came apart very easily. That's a bit concerning. Sure, it won't be the end of the world though. Okay, so these two staves are sides of the sword, so they can sit over there. These two over here would be the new striking edge of the sword. So we'll put you over there. And the one that is damaged. Let's see what damage we've got. Holy crap. Okay. These are always so much worse than I think they are, because when you actually open the sword, I think this is what I did last time as well, you can actually see the cracks forming. My word, can we have a little bit less light there, please? Okay, maybe that's too little, but yeah, you can see the crack right there that's formed in the underside of it because of my maybe slightly too forceful hits. But that's okay, it's not the end of the world. The sword's not going to immediately break and kill anyone. If I put this on the back, it should be okay. I think the sides might be riskier because we do lots of haraiwaza and all sorts of things like that that require the side of the sword. So we're going to put it at the back just because it's least likely to get damaged and take too much impact. But before we do that, let's give it a little bit of a sanding. We're just going to grab some rough sandpaper. This is 60 or 80 or something like that. It doesn't really matter as long as you're not eating too much away at once. And you kind of want one thicker one and one thinner one. And you really want to watch out for splinters on this. It's not fun. And if you're wearing headphones, I'm sorry. I know it sucks. But what you kind of want to do is just get rid of all of the excess splinters and things that are coming off the side of the sword. There is a bit of a process that you're supposed to do every time you get new swords. I haven't read the full document on it yet, but there's something about taking it off and shaving the sides all the way down the sword so that it fits a bit better together, which I'm unsure of if we actually get the swords in that condition or if we're supposed to do it after we buy new swords. It seems counterintuitive to me to send a sword all put together that then every single person has to take apart and shave down and put back together. Surely they would just do that before sending them out. I don't know. I'll have to do some digging on that. But I did read something about that. I think it was a couple of weeks ago now. And I have a really good document that tells you about the preparation of Shinai once you bought them, as well as this repair process, which probably would have been really, really helpful to finish reading through before doing this. But you know what? We learn on the job. That's kind of how we learn effectively. Hopefully. But yeah, we're just going to give this a very quick sanding. I'll have to vacuum in here at some point. That'll be fun. That's probably okay. I did do this just a couple of days ago without taking the sword apart. Just because it was the sword I was using and I didn't really have the time to take it apart before the next Keiko session, because then I would be sans sword, which means without sword, which would not be good for a training session. So while it was still together, I was doing some sanding. So we're just going to keep it a bit light today. And also sand this bit over here, which I did not know was damaged. Is there any more damage further down? There doesn't seem to be. I think it's okay. We just gotta watch out for splinters, because splinters are very, very, very easy to get by doing this, as I'm sure you can imagine. You can't actually see what I'm doing, I've just realized, and that's gonna have to stay that way for just a second, because yeah, this is not the ideal setup for this, but you just kind of want to get rid of all the sharp bits and everything that, as you strike, might splinter off and injure somebody. If you can imagine that, maybe just cove it off. That's the general idea here, as far as I understand. Great, now there's sawdust all over my computer. That is super helpful. Now that we've done a rough coat, we're just going to quickly do a finer coat with a higher grit sandpaper, just to smooth things out a little bit more. Again, I don't think it really matters what grit you're using. I think the important thing is how much of an effect you're getting out of it. So this is something that's very common in blacksmithing as well, because we use sanding belts and sandpaper and things like that. I'm not going to go through the obvious things of sandpaper, but when you think about your variance between your low grit sandpaper and your high grit sandpaper, maybe just don't have them like thousands apart. Maybe if you're using a 60, which is a little bit rough, maybe use an 80. But if you're using a 60 and you happen to have something that's like 200 or 300 around that area on hand, then go for it. This is 800. This is not super ideal, but it's kind of just what I've got on hand at the moment, so it's not the end of the world. It just means you'll spend a little bit more time on the finer one, just because it's not eating away as much. But the real important part of this is that rough sandpaper getting off those edges, and then the smooth sandpaper just kind of cleans it up a little bit. So I don't think it's the most important thing in the world, but you can certainly be more efficient by having a slightly lower grade sandpaper for this one, or lower grit sandpaper for this one, just so it doesn't take so long to smoothen up. But I guess it's up to you and what sandpapers you have, I suppose. Right, let's just do a little bit more at the top here. Right. I would not recommend running your hands along it like I'm doing here, just because you'll definitely catch some splinters if you do. But sometimes I just like to check some areas that I can see but I'm not fully convinced are shaved down like that. And then if that happens, guess what? You grab your sandpaper, low grit, and you do it again. Goodbye sandpaper, thank you. And then you go back to your high grit and you just shape it up a little bit. Hey, it's actually in camera for once, look at that. Yeah, we do learn eventually, don't we? Okay, so now, whoops. So now we have a significantly better situation here. That's still not detached, but definitely not gonna stay. So we'll just do one more there. This is why I edit all this out, because it's quite a process. Yeah. Ooh, touch more there. Okay, I think that's ready now. Sorry for the absolute silence, but it takes focus, you know. Okay, so this is now going to be the top of the sword. So let's keep that in mind as we attempt to put this back together, shall we? So we want to make sure to line it up with that little piece of metal right in there. I'm sure we've gone over this before. Well, those have separated, so that'll be easier. But there's this little piece of metal right there. It's like a little square piece of metal that sits right there, and what that does is it lines up with all these grooves in here, and then it holds the sword together as well as acts as a spacer. These are phenomenally designed weapons, tools, training implements, sticks. That's what they are. They are sticks. Just lovely, wonderful bamboo sticks. Can you clip in there somewhere? Yes. That's 3 of them. Cool, 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 cool. Nice. Good. Not nice, not good. Bad, falling apart. It's just a bit of a balancing act, you know, like life. You just gotta balance things out and pray a little bit and maybe things will go fine. But we'll see how it goes. Oh, we need you. Nice. Okay, so that is now the bottom of the sword. I don't see any problems or breaks or faults in that. At least not at a cursory glance. But trust me, you will know if you have a major fault with your sword. But the responsible thing is to try not let it happen in the dojo while you're training. Try and catch all those things as much as you can out here before you go back in. So you don't have to worry about changing swords if you don't have to halfway through training. You can just focus on hitting people with sticks. Okay, that is fitting together fairly nicely. I think the main thing we want to do before worrying about all of that is just get that handle back on, just so that we can hold this all together without worrying. But that, it's first of all a very good sign when it's actually cylindrical and holds together. Sometimes if you're taking staves from other swords and putting them together, they don't fit super nicely. But since the sword was made with these pieces, swapping them around is not the end of the world. It still fits together quite nicely. Okay, let us get that on here. So that is usually the top of the sword. That is now going to be the bottom of our sword, which means you over there are the top. So let us... Oh, that's so weird for that to be on the side. That's supposed to be on that side. So I guess we've flipped it around. And I guess we'll also see if that's going to have fixed any of our straightening issues. That one is concerningly easy to get on. Usually that is really one of the hardest parts of this whole process, is just getting that handle back onto the sword. That was beautifully easy. But I guess that's what happens when you have a new sword. Ah, look at that. Beautiful. Back together. Oh, so nice and clean on that side. That side's a bit damaged, but that is not the end of the world. That should be just fine. Okay, sandpaper. Thank you for your service. Off you go. Good lord. Off you go. Okay. So next we will need to put the string on, put the saki gomu in, put the... What's the bit at the top of the kensen? So this whole area is called the kensen, but I forget what this thing is called. Also going to be on the screen. We're doing lots of learning today. Unfortunately, I'm only going to learn it later while editing this, but you'll know now. So let's do that. Saki gomu. Let's just clean that off. I don't know what that is, or wax or something. I've never seen something like that on the saki gomu before. Probably part of the production process, I imagine. Not in all my years have I seen something like that. Not in all my almost 2 years. But it's just a little bit odd. I have another saki gomu here, but it won't change anything functionally, so we're not going to care. We're just going to put it back together. Okay. That distance is a little bit weird now, but we'll see. Okay, so now saki gomu is in. We need to pop you over there. So what I did on the last one is I put all of this on together, put that on, and then tighten the string, and then I could wrap the nakayui on after, because I'd put the string through it rather, and then put the whole sword together, and then wrapped it and learned the tying method to make this very cool little knot over here. Having to show you a lot of things. Maybe I should get a second camera to make that a bit easier. But yeah, there's a very interesting little knot there that is very hard to see in this current situation. But at the moment I don't really have that because I don't want to retie the whole nakayui. So we're just going to gently remove the saki gomu. Gently go back over this bit of the sword. Yeah. Come on, man. We know you can do this. Ah, yes. Good job. Okay, so now that that's popped over that section and actually where it needs to be, we put the saki gomu in. We put this little guy over the top. Make sure it's nice and straight. And there we go. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, now comes the fun part of retying the Shinai. This is quite a process, but luckily I don't have to retie this bit. So what I had to do just now was retie, learn how that worked, rerun it through here and learn that system better than I knew it before, and then learn how the this bit, Naka Yui bit ties and works together. So I learned a lot about Shinai so far today, but let's see how this goes. So if you come up through there, you want to come... I feel like this is different from the system I had before, because the system I had before... No, it still has to do that. Okay, that's fine. I know where we are. So that goes through this guy over here. Come on. Yeah. And straight through that one over here. Can you see this? You can. Good. That's nice. Okay, so the point of tension you want to start bringing in is around there, but it's not really going to hold too well. So first I'm going to go through there, and then I'll start pulling the actual tension through. First we just want to space those out a bit. I should really do a video that breaks down these individual bits and how cool it is, how they go together a little bit more, because there's a lot of intricacies to this that I just can't show you with this camera setup. So maybe I'll take some pictures the next time I do this, and we'll do an even more in-depth Shinai surgery, because this is kind of like the intermediate course on Shinai surgery. Last time was absolutely beginner. I had no idea what I was doing. And still, I mean, I suppose I can't say no idea anymore, but a lot of learning still to be done, to be fair. Okay, so let's get that through there. Come now. You can do it. I believe in you. Come on. I believe most of these fittings are made with deer hide. I know that a lot of the fittings for Bogu, the armor, is made with deer hide. I wonder if it's the same for these, or maybe it's these that I was reading on when I read deer hide. It's a traditional ingredient as far as I'm aware. Ingredient? Yeah, ingredient in swords. But I'm not actually certain about all the differences. But I think these are made from deer hide, deer leather. Okay, so now that it goes through here and back here, it's going to come back up here, and then we're going to do that intricate tying system. But you want to already start getting that kind of tension through it. And in fact, most things in Kendo require that kind of tension. When you're tying your men on and your bogu and stuff, it needs to be not like restrictive, but very secured. Like almost as if you're imagining you're going out to a war. You kind of want all your stuff strapped to you and not going to fall off when somebody swings an attack your way and you like slip and all your armor comes off. That would not be ideal. So most things in Kendo at least seem to be quite securely tied, which is good. So now with this guy, we're going to go up and around and through, and then later we're going to come back to him. Okay, so don't need all that tension just yet. We're just going to work this little guy up through there to all these parts that I can't even slightly name yet, but I guess I'm going to be reading up on those when I do the edit of this video. But we want to start getting that nice tension in and just making sure everything's straight, which at the moment they are not, which means, whoops, that probably has to change a little bit that way. And then that should run pretty straight, and that guy over there needs to be a little bit more angled. There we go. Okay, so now that we're here, we can probably get a decent amount of tension. Where's a good spot? Excuse me. Thank you. There's a pretty decent spot. So we just got to get that tension up here, and then we're going to go underneath these bits here, all the way under, and then start wrapping around, essentially. This is not the most involved video angle, I do apologize, but that's what we've got. So that's like the general idea of what we're going to be doing. The normal way that you do this, especially when you're training, is to just grab your tsuba and chuck it right under there, because that gives it that nice lift there, so that when you're trying to, even over there is fine actually, so that when you've got that tension, you kind of want to hold that tension as much as you can while also wiring through or restringing. So that just gives you that little bit of gap there to feed it through and under. And I think also because you're tightening and then you're removing that, either it adds a bit of tension or it takes a bit of tension away. Not entirely certain, but I think the main purpose of that would be to make it just a bit easier to get this string under there through the other side and keep the tension while you tighten this whole situation up. Come on, just there. Yes. Okay, so then we get a nice bit of tension there, and then we go back under again. This string is incredibly long. I may actually even want to cut it, but I really don't like cutting string. I'd rather loop it around 50 times than cut it if I can avoid it. But sometimes it's just a little bit too much string to deal with. So we're going to see what happens as we go. But you'd be surprised how much of the string actually gets taken up by just this little winding process here. It's pretty helpful, because if you ever need to use this tsuru on another sword, and maybe it's like this one, it's a 38 instead of a 39, it might be a little bit different, and then you may want more or less string depending on where else you use that sword. So it's less about this sword, and it's more about future swords. And if I need to take this sword apart to fix another sword, I kind of want all the options available to me that I can. So yeah, that's an unnecessary little explanation on why I like to keep my tsuru strings a little bit longer than maybe a lot of people do. I've seen a lot of people that are quite pedantic about you get to X number of loops on here and then you cut it. It never goes further than that. And I think that's a little bit extremist for me. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe there's a better reason for it that proves me wrong. Totally open to that. But for now, I'm going to keep my long strings because it's a little bit more safe, you know? Okay, so that's the general process of winding around. We're just going to do that a couple times now. Yep. Okay, so now that we're right near the end of the string, I think we can maybe get one more, but arigatou. But what we really want to start looking at doing is a very interesting little method here where we find that string that comes all the way up. And we want to go, how do I best visualize this? So that string that's coming up, we want to come around that string and through, as far as I remember it. But let's double check. So you want to come around that side, underneath the string. I did that the wrong way. I'll have to fix that just now. That string? No, that string there. We're going to go to that string there. We're going to come around. Oh my. It's quite... How do I... There we go. Can you see it all? You're not going to be able to see any of this in detail, so I'm not going to worry about it for now. Sorry. I'm just going to get the wiring. Okay, so that needs to come around and in. Is this not the same way I did it on the other one? It looks like it is. Maybe I just saw it a bit strangely. Oh yeah, that's absolutely not the the good looking way of doing it. Go through, please. Okay, so now that that's up there, we just got to bring all of that slack all the way up. That way, we just got to bring you up, 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 up. Yes. And tighten. And then, once that's through there, you can pull it up to tighten it. Yes, which makes sense. And that goes around and under. But is that right? Round and over. I see what I've done wrong. It's supposed to come through there. Yes, okay. It goes up and around there. Let's just give that a bit of a tighten, and we'll use the off-screen sneaky pliers that you didn't even know were there. And we'll just pull that through nice and tight, just so it's nice and secure. Much better. And then this little guy just goes back through both of those to finish off. And I definitely have a little bit too much excess here with that. All of the lights have gone off. That's a shame. Good thing I've still got this one. Hey, and they're back. Okay, so now there's a little bit too much excess there. There's just this little string that's coming off, which is, it's not the end of the world, but I don't really like it. So I'll consider cutting that off. However, what we do have now is a sword. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Is it straighter? It's actually straighter. That's really cool. That's a nice little happy coincidence there, isn't it? It's a beautifully straight sword. All of the damaged bits have now transferred up to the top here, so it should be fine. And I've now got a beautifully clean and fresh cutting surface all the way along the bottom of the sword. Which also now has the kanji writing at the bottom of the sword, which I don't actually know what that says, but I'm learning kanji and katakana, so I'll translate it eventually. I know the short ones, the shoto, the small swords say nitoryu on them, because shoto are only really used in nitoryu, because what other purpose would you have for them? Nobody fights with two short swords, or one short sword, in fact. So that is that sword's surgery. And that was really fun. That was good. A little bit more lost than maybe I was hoping. Oh, I did do that one right. Wait. I didn't do this one right, did I? Let's have a look. Why not just undo it a little bit? Ah, I didn't. Okay, so that has to go down there, through there. How did I do it? Good Lord. Around that way, up that way, and down that way. Right, okay. Around that way. No, you lost me. Oh, I went backwards. I see. So you've got to go... How did I get that so wrong? I'm really hoping that this time isn't the time I'm getting it wrong, and it was actually just this last time that I'm getting it wrong. But let's go around that. And then up there. Come on. Come on. Up. Yes. Okay, so then you pull up. And that's what I remember marking when I was taking the new sword apart, is that you can pull up to secure that rather than out to the side, which is not really great. Because of the way that wraps around, it goes up and then through and secures it very nicely, taking that slack, and then you feed it through here, just so it's kind of got a second layer of not letting that slack slip by. Very, very intricate designs. Like, I am in awe of whoever designed these things. Like, good God, that is just a level of brilliance I can hardly understand, let alone account for. But I am incredibly grateful for it, because you made such incredible things that I am a huge fan of, and now I've gotten slightly better at putting them together. So that one is nice and done, and this one is nice and done. There's a little bit of extra slack there, but that's not the end of the world, and we can probably just loop him around here again, or just tuck him in there. No, definitely not tucking him in there, so let's see if we can just loop him around. Perhaps, maybe, please? Please? No? You can do it. I believe in you. This is probably the point where it's okay to cut off a little bit of slack, just because it's not a serviceable amount that's actually going to change anything necessarily. It's just kind of a small amount of slack there. But if it's so inconsequential, it probably won't affect my fighting either. So now we have 2 swords fixed today. Both 39, so I have definitely got swords for the next little while. They do look like different heights, which they really shouldn't be. No, they've just got slightly different tsuba heights. But there you go, 2 swords fixed. Very, very nice. Let's just put those that way. This little guy, I did want to fix today. I'm not sure if I will, just because now that I'm noticing it's put together a little bit differently, I want to be careful with that. This is a very nice one. This is called a dobari, where this part of the sword is a lot thicker than like a standard issue one. I wonder if you can see that. Yeah, you can see that pretty nicely. So that section being nice and fat. I love dobari swords just because the weight distribution of them feels so nice, just because there's a little bit more weight down at the bottom by your hands. I'm a big fan. This is a 38, so it's really tough for me to use this because I can't really use 38s for itoryu, which is one sword style. But it is nice to have a backup for when these break during a session or something happens and I just need something to keep training with. This is quite nice for that. But it is quite bent. Let's see if we can catch that on camera. Oh, that is very difficult to film. Yeah, it's a bit hard to show off, but it's kind of got a really big curve off to the side. It's almost like a banana. So that's something that I do want to fix, but I kind of want to have a little bit more of a look at... No, that's not going to come across. I want to have a little bit more of a look at how it's put together and everything before I take it apart, because this does not seem like the usual way of doing things. So yeah, anyway, that would be our Shinai surgery for today. We had 2 successful operations and 1 sword that was also here, but of course you knew that we needed 3 swords anyway. So yes, that was Shinai surgery. Thank you very much if you made it all the way to the end of this probably incredibly long video. Good God, that's too much. And I hope that you had fun. Maybe that you learned something, and that maybe you're inspired to get a sword or hit someone with a stick, professionally only, and get into a dojo and find out more about Kendo and what we do. So yeah, anyway, thanks and have a wonderful day ahead. Bye.